Welcome to the Fire Away Podcast. The podcast that is the Fire Away Podcast. Oh yeah. Here we go. Let's do it.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Fire Away Podcast. I am your host, Mark Meyer. We got a special episode today. I'll be jumping off of here soon. I wanted to remind you to check us out on Instagram, Fire_Away Podcast on Instagram, and catch us anywhere you get your podcast. We're up to about 50 episodes now, so go ahead and catch up. And today's episode is what we're going to be calling the Nerdcast. So I got some laughs already. We got Kelly Keppley, Larry Stevenson, Mike Sirak, and Joe Parmer are going to be taking the mics. I'm going to be getting out of here. We're going to let them take over and talk about the things they like. You're going to finally get to hear Kelly talk a little bit from behind the board. He's super excited.
Not a chance.
So without further ado, I'm going to let the gentleman take over. Guys, enjoy the podcast.
Kelly's the host. Kelly's the host. He's got to open us up.
Oh, no, we've already been open.
What?
Yeah, no, he did the intro.
No, I mean...
Oh, you want me to start the conversation?
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about?
I don't know.
Man, when did you realize that you were a nerd?
That's actually a really good question.
Like, can you tie it down to a specific moment?
Can we define nerd?
Really, I think
So I don't know if I fit in here.
I think we should, because, I mean, what do we see? What is the definition of a nerd? You guys think? I mean, I can tell you with me, guys, like, mine is, like, really funny, because, I mean, if you're going to put it down to, like, a timeline type of thing, being born and raised here in Baltimore City, man, but I'm from West Baltimore. I'm a White Lock City guy. So, you know, the thought would be like, oh, this is this urban kid, whatever. But I was lucky, man. My dad, I wasn't going to call it lucky. My parents got divorced, and my mom remarried, and my dad, it's kind of funny. It's like the Dave Chappelle story. Like, we were wealthy enough to move out of the hood to be the poorest people in a nice neighborhood. So in doing that, I got a chance to go to school with a whole lot of kids that we shared a whole lot of similar interests. And, like, I was always in the library. I was one of those King Arthur, Three Musketeers loving kids. And I ran into some kids who had comic books. And that started it. And then
Game over from there.
It was game over, Mike. I used to have to race home, and I'm aging myself. Maybe you guys don't remember, but 3:00, you get home, Captain Chesapeake was on. And that was my introduction to what I guess they call anime or manga now, because I watched Speed Racer.
Oh, so that's a classic.
Speed Racer was my introduction, and from there I was hooked.
The earliest thing I could think of is, I guess, an original Nintendo, and then watching Star Wars, VHS. And it was like, okay, well, this is awesome. And then it just blossomed from there.
Oh my gosh, he said VHS. I actually went. I was one of those kids in '77 that came to school, and we were like, oh my God, did you see Star Wars? And I'm like, what is that? So, seeing how it grows.
Mine was probably like my grandmother always pushed me to read a lot, and I always liked fantasy stuff. So I had really gotten into Lord of the Rings, and then unfortunately I discovered video games, and then from there now all my free time is spent between playing games or just reading stuff like manga, fantasy, whatever it is. Kelly?
No comments here, guys.
Wow, okay.
No, I've always, same deal. Star Wars and video games. Atari, NES, take it from there. I had them all.
So, Mike, you said Nintendo. What was your game on Nintendo, man?
I mean, how many you could think of? Legend of Zelda, all the Super Marios, Contra, Super Dodgeball, Kirby. I mean, the list goes on. And then you go from there. I mean, I'm a Nintendo guy, so Super Nintendo, N64, GameCube, all of them. I got the Switch 2 pre-ordered, so when we do Mario Kart again, bring that bad boy in. I won't lose this time.
Me neither, Mike.
So I mean, and it's so funny because, and when you meet folks and you guys are interested in a lot of the same things, it's cool. This morning, for example, I walked in and I was talking to Joe, and me being a bit older, I can really relate and go back to the Atari 2600. I can go back to Pong. So
Sure.
and it was good because I discovered this game on my Game Pass. And I'm like, hey, Joe, I'm playing this game. It's Killer Instinct. And he was like, yeah, that's from like Dreamcast. I'm like, what?
Yeah, the original.
So,
the original's what, Nintendo?
Killer Instinct, I think, was Super Nintendo Sega
Yeah.
era.
yeah, the Sega it had the Sega Genesis look.
Yeah.
So it was something that I think that was the game changing system for me. The Sega Genesis.
The first console I remember like actually having that my parents gave me was the PlayStation 1. But we had a Super Nintendo, like playing Mario and stuff. But
You guys remember ColecoVision?
I know what it is, but never
yeah,
had one.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I know, like, I really enjoy games with, like, big stories. So I kind of drifted away from Nintendo and went more into, like, Xbox, PlayStation, PC and stuff. And then sunk far too many years into WoW.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Far too
speaking
many
of
years in a while.
which, 28th year anniversary of Leroy Jenkins was just a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
So if no one knows what that is, it's a hilarious video. Go look it up of them pretending to do a raid. And they're trying to do this entire sequence. They keep dying at it over and over again. And then the guy just gets up and just, thumbs up. Let's do this. And then just yells Leroy Jenkins at the top of his lungs, runs in. Everything goes to shit.
All right, Mike, now describe
Whoops.
what a raid is for context.
Yeah. I think some folks might need to know that.
So a raid in World of Warcraft was when you got, back in that time, 20 to 40 people all at the same time going through a dungeon and fighting enemies, defeating bosses, and getting loot so you can get stronger so then you could go do harder dungeons and harder raids and so on and so forth until the end of time.
So, and for those folks that don't know, like, and Joe was talking about it, those world building games and stuff like that, where, and then you think about how things have just changed. We went from playing Battleship board games to where we literally could do it on our computer consoles.
A good example of that is you and I have been talking about Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate is set in like the Dungeons and Dragons universe. The way that Dungeons and Dragons is played is all through like dice rolls, like setting, if you get above this happens, and your DM is kind of like a judge. To have it turn into a video game that runs it all in the background, I never thought that would happen.
And you go from like video game aspect of just Super Mario, which again is just running right and getting to the end of a level, to Baldur's Gate, where it's just an expansive story that you could play 15 times through and get different things happening every time you play because of all the different random chance effects. And it's just that world building that I think goes to your, initial question of what makes you a nerd. Like just that building the world and living it just through this like high fantasy of like sword and sorcery. It's just so interesting, and how they can flesh everything out. It's like, I can't imagine coming up with something like that off the top of my head, and then them taking, they took 8 years to make that game, and just like to see the passion they put in it, it's just really cool.
And it shows. It comes through when you play it, because coming from playing on your game consoles where everything was. I remember I forgot the sports game where they had the glitch. If you did like one move, they made a joke about it on Family Guy. Peter was playing double dribble, and he kept hitting this 3-point shot from this one space on the floor. Like, you can never stop it. And when you talk about taking 8 years to design a game, you really see it. Whereas you have all the different outcomes. It's not, I'm just going to push the X button and I'm going to be able to repeatedly hit this guy and it falls. So just in with it, and just the way that the whole industry has been allowed to mushroom is great. I think it gives all us who are kids with great imaginations the opportunity to flesh it out.
And a lot of people forget that, like, especially like an older generation that didn't come up with like games. Right now, games is the most expensive industry, like the industry that spends the most money, more than movies, more than books. Like, it's because you're not just making a 2-hour film. You're making sometimes, I mean, Baldur's Gate 3, to complete that game.
These are coming from studios, right?
To complete that game, you're talking about over 100 hours, and you're a part of it. So I think that, in a way, that kind of separates. For the people we were talking about, what the definition of a nerd is, I would say that a nerd is somebody that falls into escapism, not in a negative way,
Right.
But then, like I always joke with Reggie about, like, I call him a nerd because he's got the Game of Thrones ringtone on his phone. He doesn't see that as nerdy because he likes Game of Thrones, but for us that read Game of Thrones in the early 2000s, we're
Exactly.
like, you like dragons. Admit you like dragons. They're cool.
If your show has a dragon in it,
Yeah, it's cool.
If the show
it's
has a
nerdy.
dragon in it and you like it, you're a
Yeah.
nerd. Okay,
You
embrace it.
can lie all you want. It's fine. Like,
and nothing's wrong with it. I think it's great that escapism, where it isn't, we have to alter our reality. You know what I mean? Through artificial means, per se. It's great. The escapism of I think it's all grounded in, and people may not want to admit it, in reading.
yeah.
You guys are a great example in just saying, like, you literally read, the Game of Thrones series. George R.R. Martin had a whole bunch of books, to whereas when we watched the show, we're like, okay, he didn't finish the book.
And we're the insufferable ones because we're like, well, that didn't happen.
Right.
Book 2.
But then you watch it with somebody who's just interested in, it's a great, TV series, and we're sitting there like, if you read the book, Ramsay Bolton, you ain't seen nothing like compared to, and then it gets into the discussions that you can have, and I think when you open up people to new worlds is great. I know we're on a podcast, folks can't see me, but I'm 6'4", 300 pounds with big dreadlocks. I mean, I'm older now, but I didn't think if you were going to stereotype or, build your nerd, I don't think I fell into it, but I think I've had the opportunity to introduce so many people to so many things in it, to whereas my kids now have such a rounded. I think it might not be one of my kids because they're older now, but one of my grandkids is going to mess around and write, the next great science fiction. I have no doubts that I have a future Jordan Peele on my hands. This kid is just going to sit there and open up his imagination. That, hey, if I take this, I'm going to be this or whatever. It's just expansive. So I think it's great.
Well, and that, like, with you talking about sci-fi as well, like we were talking about escapism, but particularly with like sci-fi, it is escapist, but at the same time, like a lot of the best sci-fi is grounded in like real world problems. Like Jordan Peele is a great example of, like, he redid Twilight Zone, and the best sci-fi topics are ones that, like, they mask a real world issue so that people find it more palatable, and then they hit you with the side hook of, like, oh yeah, this is actually about X. And
Right. I mean, and how long has Twilight Zone been around?
Yeah.
I mean, 70 years at this point.
Classic.
And then because of its success, you have like similar anthology things like Love, Death, and we were talking about Love, Death, and Robots. Black Mirror is a big one.
What's the one we were just talking about? That's
Secret
on
Level
Prime.
and-
Secret
yeah.
Level. Have you watched that?
I've seen a couple of episodes. I haven't watched the whole thing yet.
Joe and I are still freaking out over the Pac-Man one.
Yeah, the Pac-Man one's weird as shit.
It's weird.
Yeah,
Well, speaking of that Pac-Man Secret Level, they're making a game based on
yes,
that, right, too.
Yeah.
No, I
it's like a
didn't.
Metroidvania style thing where, like, it's side-scrolling, right?
Yes. So I had to explain raids, explain what a Metroidvania is.
Please.
Metroidvania.
Layman's terms, Joe.
So there is a game called Metroid, and there is a game called Castlevania. They are side-scrolling, typically 2D games, where you just explore a big map, and you might have to cycle back on yourself after you get abilities to unlock things.
There could be certain routes where you can't go until you find a power-up in a different area, and then you would have to backtrack and say, oh, I have the double jump now, so I can get past this whatever, and then it goes like that. And then because of their success, they're termed Metroidvanias, because any game that is based on that premise It's just like, okay, this is a Metroidvania, but it's in this style or something like
Like
that.
Hollow Knight or
And that's what I think it lends itself to it because what was that movie a few years ago where the kid who plays McLovin went to the Renaissance Festival and they dressed up in
role models.
role models. And you know, even though it was years ago that film came out, I think those are great. You know, the little opportunities where you can get with like-minded folks and you just go out and have fun.
Oh,
you know?
LARPing and stuff.
Yeah, you. I mean, what's the appeal of medieval knights? But going there and eating a big piece of meat with your hands and seeing a jousting event, but then you ratchet it up and we make fun. Like one of my favorite movies, man, is Galaxy Quest.
Oh yeah.
Galaxy Quest, it to me is, and honestly, it could be a I would say a nerd love story to us harkening back to the Gene Roddenberry Star Trek days, but for those people who are fans of Star Trek and they travel to conventions and they go to shows and they can tell you, well, on season 3, episode number 7, you get what I'm saying? Can you tell us how you felt? And to have that type of passion for something is, I used to think it was weird myself until I took my daughter to Comic-Con. And I felt like exposing my daughter to artists was the responsible thing to do. I mean, yeah, I'm a fan myself, so I wanted to go and see. Yeah, I think Chris Claremont was at the one I went to. So I'm like, okay, I want to go see this guy. I read this comic book
Yeah,
series.
his X-Men and stuff.
Yeah, like, the graphics were different, but the stories were great. And sharing that. And for everybody, just so you guys know, like Joe Parmer came into the office and gave me a box of comics.
Hey, Mike, you want comics?
He's been trying to foist them off on me too. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it was,
Kelly, you need comics?
so that's how it got to me. But Joe, I didn't get in trouble with my wife. I found a place in my basement for it. But
good.
It was a great thing because I lost a lot of comics growing up. As I mentioned, when I moved out to that neighborhood and I got introduced to it, one of the great things that helped me build friendships were kids would be like, "Hey, you want to borrow my comic?" And then understanding how much people valued them, so you took care of them. You read a story that puts you somewhere different, and then you started becoming like, well, I got to go to the comic store next week, and get this next edition. Or wait a minute, why is there so many different comics that have Batman in it? I thought Batman was just Batman, but it's Detective Series #1, and then you get what I mean, like, and then you break down the structures of how they write it. So it just becomes a world unto itself.
Well, especially in the modern day, like nerdy topic things are more like relevant to pop culture, but like the staying power of those properties are fascinating because like anybody that you talk to in the U.S. knows who Superman is, knows who Spider-Man is, and knows who Batman is, and they know at least the basic story of them.
Right.
And I mean,
Because-
Superman and Batman are almost 100 years old, over 100 years old at this point.
And still coming up with fresh stories, fresh ways to see it. I mean, you guys excited about the James Gunn
No.
Superman?
Not even a little.
Why? That's the thing. Like when you talk to guys like us, and then we have these discussions, I think they're a little different than everybody else's because we'll really get into the crux to why we did. Like, so Joe,
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I'm excited for it.
I'm excited for it too. I tempered excitement. Like, I'm definitely more excited for it than I was anything Snyder.
The Snyderverse
I agree.
stuff.
I don't like Snyder.
I gave Zack Snyder his props for 300 and Watchmen.
I liked his adaptation of Watchmen.
Yeah.
Now, here's what's weird about Watchmen for me. I saw the film before I read the comic. So, got to understand, like, if you never read the comic and you see Watchmen, you're sitting there like, okay,
Yeah.
like, what am I watching?
So to age myself, when Watchmen came out, I was in the movie. I had already read it. Probably shouldn't have been, but my mom wanted to take me to go see the new superhero movie, and I'm not going to tell her what Watchmen's actually about. And
So
that was an interesting experience.
So
of,
Dr. Manhattan comes out in your
yeah, walking out.
this big blue nude guy
It's like, sup.
that's like 50
Yeah.
feet tall.
Opening line, Rorschach talking about how people are like,
Oh man, Rorschach's journal opening is.
Yeah.
But your experience in reading it first, did that make you more excited to see the film, or
did when I was younger, it made me. I feel like nerds are big critics when their things are adapted because it's something that they hold close. Like Mike, you're a big Star Wars fan. Like,
Yes.
I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, and those properties keep getting touched on again. But with Watchmen, I was at the time upset with the cuts that were made. But anytime that something's adapted, there's going to be things that are lost, just so that they're more palatable to a common audience.
got to fit it
or
into a timeline.
Yeah, there's a lot more hands involved of like producers going, okay, well, this won't test well, that won't do what. But as I've gotten older, I'm not as big of a critic anymore with it. Like One Piece is a great example. I'm a huge One Piece fan.
Yeah, the live action kind of threw me off, though.
I went into the live action expecting to hate it. Like, expecting to fully hate it. If it's what gets you into a property, there's no wrong way.
Okay.
Like, you might not be a fan of a certain Star Wars adaptation, but if it gets somebody else into Star Wars, is it bad?
That's probably one of the biggest negatives of nerddom right now is just the rampant gatekeeping.
Yes, gatekeeping is a big issue.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm 100%, if you want to watch something that's Star Wars and it might not be my favorite, but like Joe was just saying, you like it a lot. It's like, why would we want more people into this fandom. We want to, then it's like, oh, you started with this, maybe check out this, and then check out this. And then from there, it's like, oh, look, it's another person who loves the thing that I love, and I can talk to you about it. And it's just building a community.
Right.
And then finding that passion that you fell in love with it maybe, 20, 30 years ago, you seeing it for the first time in this person. And it's like, that's awesome. That's the reason I fell in love with this. And going back to how you were talking about like going to Comic-Cons and stuff. So speaking of like kind of like that, so my dog's name is Wedge.
Okay.
And it's based off a character in Star Wars. And when I tell people that, 99% of people are like, oh, that's just a cute name.
Right.
But if you know who Wedge is, who, getting into a deep dive, he's the person in the, if you watch the original movie, he's the person in the X-Wing with Luke during the trench run. Mm-hmm. And I've always liked him. And then when you get deeper into it, like you're saying, you're finding passion, he's also the only person to attack both Death Stars and survive. And then when I bust out stuff like that, people are like, what are you talking about? Like
This character that has like 2 lines.
Right.
Is my
Yeah.
favorite character.
But again, it's the world building where you find those things that something that, Wedge, to me, when I heard it, I was like, I don't know what you ain't talking about. But again, I'm considering the sort. Mike knows that. But Mike, like to what you were saying, Star Wars for my generation was such a monumental thing, so new. And you go back and you watch it, and it became a part of it. But the thing that weirded me out was I had no idea that they wrote books and stuff after it. So you start going into when I think Marvel picked up a property and started doing Darth Vader stories.
Yeah, so the comic, are you talking about the comics?
Yeah.
The comics were originally published by Dark Horse.
Okay.
And then Marvel, when they bought Disney, or I'm sorry, so
Dark Horse.
Disney bought Marvel, and then because Disney owns Marvel, they then ended up owning Star Wars later from Lucasfilms. So that's why everything is being published by Marvel now.
Oh, okay. But even the, like the graphic novels and the short stories, just the world building.
Oh, it's not considered canon anymore, which is another fun nerd term that
legend.
just
Yeah,
learned about.
canon.
Yeah, but Star Wars was in a down period in the 90s. Like Return of the Jedi hadn't come out for 15 years. It was kind of just laying there doing nothing. And then a guy, Timothy Zahn, wrote the Heir to the Empire trilogy, a series of novels with a character he created named Thrawn. And these novels are incredible. If anyone wants to read Star Wars, which is probably a very select few of you, find these novels. They are great. They expand right after Return of the Jedi. So Luke, Han, Leia, the characters you know, but then adding new layers to it and making a great villain in Thrawn. And they've just expanded from there. He's now an official character in like The Mandalorian and all this fun stuff. And it brought Star Wars back, and then it became a bit more relevant again. And then they started making the prequels and all the stuff, which everyone has a love-hate relationship with those. And then it just going on from there.
Well, the prequels actually were, for me, and I always try to preface it because again, we're all fans in some capacity. For me, it was fascinating because you were always like, from episodes 4 and 5, where they painted Vader in the light that they did. He's just chosen one, but we never even got an idea of what it was. He was just this badass guy in black. You know what I mean?
And it kind of ties back to the gatekeeping thing too. Of like, I've never been a big Star Wars fan, but a lot of people rag on the prequels. Mm-hmm. But at the time that the prequels were coming out, there was a huge emphasis on toy sales with a movie adaptation, things like that. So those things are, when they make adaptations or continuations, they adapt for the audience it's gonna sell the biggest too. So,
but you pointed out that I'm glad you brought that up because a major thing that drives this whole engine is toy sales.
Yeah.
You can have the greatest stories with great fleshed out characters, but if the toys don't sell, they cut it. Young Justice. Young Justice was a great example as a kid who grew up really, really liking Teen Titan comics. And I think for a while, the Teen Titans might have been one of the better comics out during a run, competing against everyone else until the Frank Millers and guys started,
Yeah, like the Dark Age.
Yeah, it started the dark age of comics. So to see Young Justice and see how they incorporated, I was very excited. And then all of a sudden it went away. And I'm like, what happened? And then you find out, oh, well, toy sales didn't go well. And I'm like, well, we have different kids now. Kids have access to so many different things.
Yeah, toy sales isn't a priority anymore. So they're less inclined to kill something for toy sales.
I thought, and then it disappoints us because then we're really the fans, and you have a good product when there's so many things you just throw together and it isn't any good. Like, and there's always that. And to be honest, you see the world in a different way. Everybody's represented in some kind of way, or what you can tackle, and it's a little softer blow. Like I'm telling you, man, it was great. Even going back to watching Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, like for a kid like me, that was such a funny view of things because for a whole bunch of other folks, they were like, oh, these kids playing around in the junkyard. Me, I have family in Philadelphia. So in the 70s, I was a little kid who used to grow up and go to visit my cousin, and I played Buck. You know what I mean? Or the giant horse, or whatever they call those little games that we had to use our imaginations for. But then you see it, and I'm like, hey, these guys made a band out of finding stuff in a junkyard.
Yeah.
I'm a kid with a whole lot. I don't have a lot of money. You know what I mean? But it was always the one kid in the neighborhood whose parents were doing a little bit better, so he had an instrument. It's just that connection. So it was still funny. I don't care what nobody said. Who's the guy with the stocking over his head? Yep, it was I can relate. There was a guy in my neighborhood who used to wear a hat, and I'm like, I could never see his face. You know what I mean? It was a kid. If anybody was like Bill Cosby on the show growing up, it was me. I had to take my little brother everywhere. My little brother was my mother, like in a Christmas Story, make sure you dress him up. And it was Ralphie's little brother, and he had the coat.
He had the 10 layers on.
The 10 layers with the 3 scarves.
And he couldn't move.
I can't get up. I got to help Ralphie. But I was like that with my little brother. I got to take him everywhere. I can't go out and play with my friends. I'm trying to play baseball, and he's too small. Or I want to play basketball, and Mom said I had to take him everywhere. Give him a book. But he didn't want to read it. Okay. So, again, it's the escapism of, they go through the same stuff I go through. Make it funny.
So if you had to pick, Larry, would you pick DC or Marvel?
Baby, that's the best argument. I was wondering when you guys were
going to go
that.
Star Wars, Lord of the Rings.
We got all the little verses, DC or Marvel. I'll say this. I say DC has the better villains,
deeper stories often too.
Right. So if that's what draws you to comics, I always say, you know what I mean? Is it the art or is it the stories? And so for me, it was always DC. Even though there are a few Marvel titles that I really like, but as a whole, I'm a DC guy.
Okay.
What about you?
Story-wise, I have to agree. DC has better stories. Like some of like the Batman graphic novels, like The Longest Night, Long Halloween, stuff like that.
Dark Knight, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Returns.
The Dark Knight Returns, or
I mean, they're fantastic.
Hush.
Hush. Yeah, Hush
Yeah.
is fantastic.
Great. Court of Owls. I mean, we could just keep saying
Court-
Batman stuff over and over again. But
Yeah, man.
but some of the, I don't want to say Marvel has cooler characters, because that seems very base. But they are. I mean, look at. It also depends too. Like DC, I've always said has better cartoons. Like their cartoon
definitely.
division
Oh,
is fantastic. Like you were talking
in
about Teen
comparison?
Titans. The Teen Titans cartoon, great. Young Justice, great. All of Justice League in like the early mid 2000s.
Justice League Unlimited is classic.
Yeah, I mean
Justice
those
League Unlimited is a classic.
those shows
show.
were fantastic. Great stories,
Batman
great
the
world
animated
building.
series.
Oh my! I mean,
Yeah, Bruce
R.I.P.
Timm.
Kevin Conroy.
Oh man, only Batman for me.
Yeah.
Kevin Conroy.
But then you got the Marvel movies. I mean, obviously they've dipped off a bit in these later years, but I mean, the original. I remember going with my buddies seeing every Marvel movie during this run at the midnight releases.
Isn't it funny though? Like when they released Iron Man. Think about it. Iron Man wasn't the biggest Marvel property.
No. Yeah. I mean, he had a cartoon in the 90s.
Yeah,
It didn't
like-
do well.
Nobody thought about the Amazing Iron Man, but they rolled the dice and they brought in Robert Downey Jr. And now then it gave you. I was one of those guys that was like, I don't think this can transition. And then he did such a great job with Iron Man that when they announced like they were coming out with Thor, I was like, come on, man. Like, are they really going to be able to pull that off? Surprisingly, they did. So it gained that for us to get excited about the Avengers. And, they had a great run. I think that they did great. Like one of my favorite Marvel properties, and Joe and I talk about it, I think ad nauseam, Kelly. If you watch Daredevil on Netflix, man.
I mean, Kelly and I have talked about films and stuff as well, but I think Netflix did a better job of street level hero comic stuff. Of just like you're talking about Daredevil, it's not superpowers and lasers and flying. It's a
Superpower, but
guy with a superpower, but it's not super advanced, and
he actually actually gets tired.
he brawls.
He's not Superman. He's you can't just shoot at him and it bounces off his chest. Like
Right.
you shoot him in the arm, he's gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
Like
I think we all talk about that whole scene
Yeah.
from Daredevil. Like,
Sure.
One of the best parts that I took from it, besides the camera ability to follow, was that at times, like, he literally had to lean against the wall, like, geez,
Yeah.
okay, here we go again. Like, okay, if I'm fighting 25 guys, at some point in time, something's going to hurt. Like, I'm going to try to get away. So what does he do? He threw a television at a guy. Like, I mean, the most realistic things, if I'm trying to get away from something, I'm throwing everything. I'm trying to use the terrain around me to help me, and I think that that's something that made it more palatable. As a kid, I was a big Power Man and Iron Fist fan. It's always about representation. You see somebody, you're like, okay, I could look like him or whatever. But I always had a problem because I'm like, I don't know nobody walking around with no metal headband with his shirt open
Little
up.
cufflinks.
Yeah, with his his shirt unbuttoned down to his navel. What I mean? But again, it's the superhero thing. But when Netflix brought it back and did it, I mean, to me, Luke Cage season 2 is remarkable because having read the comics, I'm like, Bushmaster wasn't this, bad villain, but the guy and the character and the way they modernized it. Oh man, it was awesome. Or watching Jessica Jones go through what she's going
Jessica
through
Jones was fantastic.
with the
Yeah,
Purple
that was a
Man.
great one.
Did you guys wonder how they were going to do Kilgrave? Because
Yeah, when I saw David Tennant had been cast, I was like, oh, it's going to be good.
Right.
Yeah.
It's-
I mean, he's fantastic
Yeah.
in anything.
so it's casting too. Like that's important. Like when you get someone who not is just a fan of it, but understands the concept of the character and what you can't bring from animation to live action, but what's the premise of the power of the character? If it was somebody that we could walk across today that could do that.
That's why, like, especially, I mean, early Marvel films did it, and then they kind of got away from it. But I always liked when they took a relatively unknown actor and put them in a role. Because then you don't have the issue of trying to, like, see them as somebody else.
Yeah, you've typecast them. Hey, isn't
Yeah.
that you know?
Downey Jr. was a good pick because he was relevant
rebounding.
for a time. Yeah, he was, and then, but then for Marvel movies anyway, when they first started like getting people like Cumberbatch, like he was a larger star that was rising. Where I had already seen him in Sherlock, so I'm like, this is Sherlock. This isn't Doctor Strange for me. But then you have with Chris Evans.
Yeah,
He had already been in superhero movies.
he was Fantastic
People
Four.
forgot, and then he's Captain America.
Becomes Captain America. I'm like, dude, you went from the first family of Marvel, the Fantastic Four, to
Which I'm hopeful for this new Fantastic Four.
I like Pedro Pascal.
I think they're gonna
he's
do better.
fantastic.
Yeah.
All the other Fantastic Four movies are not that great.
just looking at what they did with the Hulk. I mean, I'm sorry, the Thing. Looking
Oh,
at
yeah.
just the stills and the
Yeah.
things I've seen of the Thing look so much different than the previous incarnations. I think they're gonna get this one right.
Yeah, I mean, I've always delved like heavy in the Marvel, but like as I kept like reading, a lot of the time I would do like indie comics and stuff. I always liked different alternative takes on heroes that we know, because a lot of time people forget to, like, if you go back and you look through history and you have myths, like especially like Greek myths, you have Odysseus or Perseus, and this is a weird tangent, but it ties back. You have Odysseus and Perseus, who are demigods.
The
that-
original comics.
They are the original superheroes.
Gilgamesh.
Superheroes.
Yeah, and it ties back into now of like these are
Immortals, the
embodiments
Eternals.
of these are
Eternals.
embodiments of like ideas that we have as people of justice and
Morality.
Um,
Vengeance.
Yeah. So you and I were talking about Batman the White Knight, of like an alternative story, a retelling of like Batman where he's older, he's more brutal, and he doesn't understand what he's doing. So there's a moment in White Knight where Bruce Wayne, Batman, is at a dinner party for, you know, the wealthy and the elite, and they're talking about how much they love Batman, and he's sitting there chuffed to himself of like, oh yeah, I'm really making a difference. And all the rich people are like, yeah, we love that he just drives through these decimated communities with a tank,
Basically,
destroys everything, and then we can buy it up for nothing.
his nuclear powered tank.
And it's a different view on a common hero that you never really think about, like, oh yeah, like this is a different way to get you into something.
Did
It's
they
not
try to
just superpowers.
incorporate that into the Batman versus Superman though?
I
The
think-
the film, because wasn't that like Bruce's main thing about like when when Superman and General Zod caused all that damage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And okay, well, I see it as a threat. Whereas what you were talking about with White Knight, it went more towards the I want to say elitist type of thinking. Like, hey, look, he's tearing up all of this stuff, and we could buy it cheap. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, hey, is this speaking the way things might be in whatever communities are going on now, where wealthy are buying more rundown areas and then building it up, buying low and then selling high.
And I think that ties back to what we were talking about earlier of like with sci-fi in particular, of like the best escapist stories, even though they are inherently escapist comics, whatever, tie back to a real world issue to make you ground in it. So like with this Batman story of like, oh, you're essentially talking about forced gentrification of a community. I didn't expect that to read that in the Batman book.
Yeah, that was
but
a
now I'm
curve.
reeled in.
That was a curve.
Well, and then on top of that, kind of like how you're saying, the best heroes, they have to have some flaws too.
They have to be human.
Most definitely, they have to be human.
I was just thinking when I was, Lord of the Rings. I mean, look at Boromir.
Yeah.
He's thinking about Gondor. He wants to save Gondor to take the ring back so he can, save his city. But then, he realizes it's not what I should do, and then he helps protect the hobbits from the orcs and the Uruk-hai. So you need to have. You can't just make someone who's like, that's maybe why people always don't like Superman, because he's always so good, and you sometimes need that.
You gotta have
Yeah.
some.
But-
I mean, a green rock just ain't enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I guess when they say, well, he's vulnerable to magic or something like that.
I mean, you have other stories with Superman, like Grant Morrison did a run of like All American Superman, where it was more. It's still Boy Scout Superman, but like it still makes him feel very human. Of like he's not. He's just a. He's a guy that grew up on a farm.
Yeah, and-
that found
and,
out that he has all this power. What should he do with it?
And then there's a Superman for all seasons. That's a really good limited run where it's like spring, summer, fall, winter, and he has like little different mini things that happened. And
So is that like, how All-Star Superman was with the anthology type?
Yeah, All Star.
That's the
All-Star,
best
yeah.
Superman
That's
I've
Morrison,
read and
yeah.
watched. All-Star Superman, for my money, is the best Superman story I've watched through.
speaking of which, we never got to why you're not excited for the new Superman movie.
You mean
Joe.
is that a movie or is that a show?
No, movie.
No, the movie.
I've never been a big Superman fan.
Oh, okay.
But-
James Gunn now.
yeah, but I didn't like James Gunn's Guardians.
Really?
Really?
I think.
Really?
I think. He
Hold
did
up. Wait a minute. We got to talk about this, Mike.
I think he did a great job of making.
He took who knew? Who knew Guardians?
He took a property that nobody knew what it was and made it popular.
Right.
But he was the start of where Marvel started pivoting away from the human, darker stories and starting to touch on them and pivoted more into comedy.
Oh, okay.
And I don't mind, I enjoy it. Like it's people in tights fighting things. Like there's gonna be comedy there, but then
Is that a victim of success though? Because
I would say yeah.
he made it comedic, and it was so
They want-
successful. So
yeah.
now it's like, oh, let's do it again. Whereas everything doesn't require.
And I'm not upset with that. It's just, we were talking about the gatekeeping aspect of it. Like, if it's going to get more people to watch it, it's a net positive. But for me, not my thing.
So now, wait a minute. He threw that question at me, and I'm gonna throw it at you guys. Lord of the Rings
Lord of the Rings,
or what was we talking about? Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones?
Star Wars.
Star Wars. No,
Lord of the Rings.
See, for me, those are two totally different things. High fantasy, science fiction. I love both of them, but if I had to pick one, it would be Star Wars.
No, we're going to get into a good old-fashioned nerd fight.
And which is why I'm an instigator. Kelly, I'm an instigator. I threw that one out there because I knew what it was going to do.
Kelly,
Yeah, let's fight.
Star Wars, Lord of the Rings.
It's tough.
There's a right answer.
I'm gonna go. I'll go Star Wars.
My man.
He's going to pressure you.
Truthfully, I hate the Hobbits. I don't
The
know
Hobbit
why.
films, I agree with you.
Well, I mean, just the
the
characters
books or
in
the
general.
films? See, he said the
Like,
characters.
I don't even like Elijah Wood.
Dude, I'm not a fan of.
Oh, yep.
I'm not a fan
No,
of
I do.
Frodo.
I'm just kidding.
I'm not a
I
fan
love
of
it. It's just
Frodo.
different the genres are too far apart for me to like really select one in that matchup. But
That's what I was saying.
I mean, I would agree there.
I just
but-
finished Andor season 2, so I'm like,
And
full
wasn't it
throttle
the
Star
best?
Wars right?
Yeah.
I've been hearing good things about it.
So,
Even
and
if you don't like Star Wars, sorry, Larry. Even if you don't like Star Wars, watch Andor. It's not a good Star Wars show. It's just a good show.
and that's if you got a good show, then it's good. Like a lot of stuff that we're seeing now, you're asking like, why is everyone so lazy? Why are they throwing out a repeat of something when you can just make your own? You can have a similar premise, but make your own. It doesn't have to, piggyback off of a property.
That was actually something I was going to. Do you think it's a net positive or a negative when they keep a property running for too long?
I think-
is it good that more Star Wars is coming out, or is it?
I see it as a negative because it always has to measure up against something.
Because studios will never let something that makes money die.
Right. They're going to always do that.
Like, huge Lord of the Rings fan. I watched Rings of Power. There are a lot of things in it that I did not like because I'm very into Lord of the Rings.
And is it because you're comparing it to,
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying?
But did it need to be made is always something that I think about. Did it need to be made, or was it made so that we can make more money for the property? Is there a cutoff line when a property should just be left alone?
See, it's tough because I feel like I'm in the minority if we're talking specifically Star Wars. I just get excited when a new show's coming out, and I'll watch all of them, even if it's just like before Andor, it was called The Acolyte. Only did one season.
I remember
It
that.
didn't get renewed. I enjoyed it. It wasn't the best. The writing was a little but it was set in a time a couple hundred years before the movies, and it showed a new era. The lightsaber combat was fantastic.
Okay.
It was probably the best lightsaber combat
I
in
did see
all
a
of
scene
the.
where he headbutts a lightsaber, and that did look cool.
Yeah, because he had a special helmet that could.
Oh,
block
I'm a bit. How do you do that?
He had a special helmet that could block a lightsaber, and he had one where he had it, and you could pull out the bottom of it and make a shorter lightsaber out of the
See,
two.
I got to go back and watch that.
Even if you just watch the episodes with the lightsaber combat, just do that because it's really cool. Anyway, it wasn't a lot of people's cup of tea, but that's what you were saying, Joe. It's like, is there a point when we shouldn't start making it? But I'm less like, give me more Star Wars. I love seeing it. I love seeing the ideas. You literally have an entire galaxy that you can build around. I think that's part of the problem with Star Wars right now. They keep going back to Luke, Leia, and Han.
Mm-hmm. That's always been my complaint with Star Wars. It's not that I don't like Star Wars. It's that what happens in the movie is not what I'm interested about in the Star Wars universe. Like,
Right.
we were talking about games. These haven't been adapted into films at all, but Knights of the Old Republic. Fantastic games.
Incredible
fantastic
games.
story.
Yeah.
It's thousands of years before it.
It's like 3,000 years before.
For everything.
That's
so,
fascinating. Like the height of Jedi versus Sith, but then you get into the Star Wars films in the 70s and 90s and everything. It's an action film.
Right.
And I find that I am more interested in something where I can go super deep into the lore on it, which you can with Star Wars, but I'm not interested in Luke and Leia. I'm interested in
just the overall universe, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away type.
Right. It's a long time ago. There's an entire. You're not set on one planet. You have an entire galaxy worth of stuff, and they build on that more in the novels and stuff like that. But that's a lot of people don't even know that they're Star Wars books.
Yeah.
They just think
Yes.
it's the 9 movies.
That was my introduction. When I after I went to a movie and saw those books, I was like, oh my.
Yeah.
So this happened and this is there, and then you start. Well, they said the Sith, but then you start learning about the old battles between the Sith and the Jedi. You're like, wait a minute, these
Yeah,
lines
it
are kind
wasn't
of
just
blurred.
2 people. It was an entire. It was just as many Sith there were Jedi, and it's
Right.
great. And then, but speaking of things going on forever, Joe, you said you're a One Piece fan.
yes.
When will that ever end?
So it's actually pretty close. It's actually very close. So I mean, how much do you want to know about One Piece?
I mean, it's not.
So-
How long? When did it start?
It started in '97.
Okay.
Okay,
So for
it's,
the
wait a minute, it's
uninitiated-
2025 right now.
This is a manga that's
Yes,
also
it
been
is
adapted into an anime.
Japanese cartoon.
Gotta start with its beginning with manga.
But it's been going on for so long, and it's one of those things where it is very good. I haven't watched it in a while, but it's so hard to get back into because it's so long, and it's like
Read it. Just read it. I always say, there are some things that are just better, especially as a comic. Some things are just better being read, especially with, we were talking about Dragon Ball Z and stuff earlier. The adaptation into animation, it's too long.
yeah.
I mean, it's long. If we're talking length, I mean, we talked about years, but I think the chapter that comes out today is 1,150.
I'm sorry. Say that. What's
1,150 chapters. They are probably about 14 pages each. People act like that's a lot, but if you've read all the Game of Thrones books, you've read
Because all those are from third person perspectives.
1,000-page books of with no pictures.
None. Now, guys, let me ask you this, because full disclosure, animation played a large role in my wanting to see more of different realms and things like that. That was the problem I had with The Hobbit. Going from English lit and you're reading the book. So now you you got to imagine it. But then when I saw my seeing The Hobbit and they brought it on, I'm looking at it well, when is it going to be funny? Because I'm so used to animation being a certain way. So I didn't look at it as a movie.
You're talking about the 80s one?
Yeah, I didn't look at it like a movie. I looked at it okay, I'm bored. Why is this? But as you get older and then you appreciate the storytelling, it becomes a little different. So what role, if any, do you believe that animation might play towards bringing people towards looking at the literary in reverse for us who read and then saw it?
I think it's tricky because I have this problem with my mom. My mom is a big reader. I will give her a book and she'll read it. She'll love it. The minute that I hand her a comic or I talk about animation, she has no interest.
Because it gets pigeonholed. Oh, this is kids.
They can both tell the same exact story. It's just a different art medium, but she just can't parse that. Like, I mean, especially now in the modern, like a lot of shows are based off comics. Like,
Jupiter, was it Jupiter
Ascending? You know, The Strain, The Walking Dead. She
The
watched
Walking
all
Dead.
The Walking Dead.
You told her it was a comic, and
Yeah,
she,
try
what?
and hand her the comic. No, got no interest. For some reason, there's this weird, like, issue where reading is art, or novels are art, pictures are art. You put them together, it's for kids.
It's for kids.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, I never really thought of it that way. That's funny. Yeah, a lot of people probably think of it that way.
Because of how it was marketed.
Sure.
And I mean, you know, if I hand my mom, you know, a Spider-Man comic, and then I hand her, you know, The Dark Knight Returns, or Alan Moore's Joker. Those are two. Or we were talking about Watchmen. It's a
Right.
perfect example of, like, if I hand her a traditional Spider-Man comic, yeah, it's probably going to be what you assumed. If I hand her the Watchmen, it's not at all what you think it is.
At all.
It's, you know, it's very violent. It's a very adult story. And I think that's another issue with, like, anime as well, is, like, people are so used to Western cartoons being for kids.
Eastern
Anime-
cartoons, boy.
Yeah, I mean, you have age groups there, but, you know, we were talking about One Piece.
It's a different story, man.
One Piece reels you in with, oh, look, it's a goofy boy that has rubber powers. And then by the end, there's a, you know, totalitarian dictatorship, and he's toppling it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've been seeing clips of him fighting Kizaru, and it's looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
Yeah, and that's just it, though. But like you said, how they reel you in. They reel you in with this elastic, cartoonish type of character, but then you get to the bigger story. And it's like, what was it? V for Victory.
Oh, V for
I mean,
Vendetta.
I'm sorry, V for Vendetta.
Yeah.
Like,
That's a good one.
example.
That's
yeah.
a great example.
V for Vendetta is completely something that threw me off.
People watch the film and they don't consider that it was a comic book, and then, you know, that's we were talking about like, you know, One Piece and totalitarianism, but like that's a full, like, he's trying to topple the British government.
But
He's wearing a Guy Fawkes mask.
And but we are also guys that can say, well, did you go back and read 1984?
Yeah, Orwell.
Yup.
Orwell was saying this stuff. So that, Kelly, that's where the nerd thing comes in. Honestly, I can say for myself, because then I'll talk about, hey, did you ever read Orwell? And then I'll have folks look at me like, what? I'm like, do you read?
Yeah.
Like,
I think a lot of the time,
and that's the. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
you're
off.
good.
That's the arrogance of it. That comes, like, a lot of folks that are considered nerds are like, these guys are arrogant if you don't know this, whatever.
Yeah,
and
the
I,
gatekeeping
and
aspect
I have
of
to
it.
catch myself because I'll be like, what, you don't read? Like, it's like an insult. And I'm like, no, I don't mean it like that. But it can come across
Yeah.
that way.
It comes as it ties to the gatekeeping thing of, like, coming off as elitist of, like, well, I read the book. Well, that doesn't mean anything. It's a different adaptation, but, like, I think a lot of the gatekeeping stuff comes from not so much in the modern generation, but like our parents' generation or the generation before that, of, like, nerds getting made fun of for the stuff that they're interested in, and then now as they're getting older, they feel embittered by the fact that, oh, the thing that I liked as a kid and you made fun of me for is now the highest selling property in films ever, and now you like it. They feel embittered.
So I'm telling you guys now, before y'all hear it, okay, I'm going to get in touch with Aaron Magruder and my man Carl Jones. My dream, Mike, you weren't in here when I was talking it. I'm going to get with my kids and I'm going to talk to those people. I'm going to have this it's what we call Badass Incorporated. And Black Dynamite and Brock Sampson are going to run the divisions. And I'm telling you, we're going to have a hit. So you guys heard it here on Fireway Podcast. and I'm gonna get with you guys. When I get, because I know some folks. I'm gonna have to call my cousin and be like, there's all this stuff going on in Hollywood right now. I need you to make a call. Get with that guy Aaron Magruder because he went to the University of Maryland.
Right.
I've been reading the Boondocks since he was writing for them. But I want Black Dynamite and Brock Sampson and Badass Incorporated. I'm trademarking that title. Don't y'all try to take it. We gonna do it.
Actually, you brought up Boondocks just now. Like, Boondocks is a great example of, like, a lot of people watch the Boondocks. For those that don't know, the Boondocks is you probably know it as a cartoon that was on Adult Swim, but that originally was published as a Sunday newspaper comic.
A news strip. It actually started at the University of Maryland on the college campus as a strip in their Terrapin.
It was alongside Garfield and Dilbert and stuff, and then ended up becoming a full cartoon.
And then the cartoon had definitely, the studio that did it, there was definitely a lot of anime influences in the animation style and everything like that.
That was a major thing with Aaron Magruder. Growing up as kids like us, he was a big anime fan. So when he pitched it, it was like that's what also took so long for the shows to complete because they had to ship it out to Korea to do the animation. And a lot of the guys that did the animation on the other shows pitched in, and that's why you got the different quality. If you watch season 1 of the Boondocks and then season 2 on, the animation is much different, and they really ratcheted up. I think that was great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Badass Incorporated, y'all don't forget that title.
No one steal that. Anyone listening to this, don't steal it.
Don't steal that.
So, Mike, why do you think that Star Wars is better than Lord of the Rings?
It used to be Star Wars versus Star Trek. I'm just
I
going
don't
to jump in
know.
on
Why
this
does he
one.
keep pushing this?
I'm wondering why he's doing
friends
that.
over here. Larry and I are trying to be friends over here.
You're wrong.
See,
I'm wondering why he's pushing this though. Mike, I'm like, he didn't know the Star Trek.
God, I did nothing. I just like it better, man. I'm not saying it is better. I just like it better. You don't try to start nothing here.
Kelly, come on, man, egg it on. He trying to start it. You pushing the button.
No. I mean, fight to the death. Do it.
Death match.
Listen,
We're
if
the
you
death
had
match
your
arena.
sword and I had a lightsaber, I'd probably win. There you go.
Ooh, there it is. That's the only argument needed, I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
he kind of got you there, Joe.
that's tough.
He cheated, man. He pulled out.
Like Gandalf versus Yoda. What do we got?
Oh, Gandalf wins.
Oh, you come on.
No, Gandalf wins.
Come on,
I
Joe.
can explain to you why.
Gandalf can beat Yoda. I got to hear this.
He might lose the first time.
And then he's going to come back at the white.
Gandalf?
Right,
Here we go. The reason Gandalf came back as the white is because Gandalf is actually an angel. That is never explained in the films. Gandalf. So, Lord of the Rings goes way deeper than the films.
Shout out to the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
To the Silmarillion. Okay.
Yeah,
so
shout out to the Silmarillion. Give it that.
Tolkien was a linguist professor, and he was, I guess we would describe as a nerd in the 30s. Okay. He wanted to make a language and a myth for England, where he's from. So he started making his own languages, and then he started, Elvish, and then he decided that a language doesn't make sense without a people that would speak it. So he started writing the Silmarillion, which were his notes for the Middle Earth. The Silmarillion goes into the creation of the world, God, and the creation of his angels. So Gandalf is an angel.
Yes.
Yoda is a small green man that's old.
Mike, he's coming for me.
Yoda died and was not brought back.
Wait, yes, he was. Yoda comes back as a Force ghost.
Okay. Gandalf comes back as a person with angel powers.
I love them both. I don't want them to fight. I was just saying me and you.
Okay? Fight. Thank you, Joe, because I swear I did have that perspective
That's what
on
we should do.
Gandalf.
Ultimate Showdown. Like celebrity death match, but you just take like properties and
Yep, I'm with it. But drop the Bad Batch in there.
Bad Batch.
That's the thing, like you were talking about with the Star Wars properties.
Yeah, I loved Clone Wars, like the cartoon and Bad Batch. Those were great.
Oh,
Rogue One.
Rogue One was good too.
Is very good.
Rogue One was awesome.
And like you saying about the animation from Boondocks from season 1 on getting better and better. Watch original Clone Wars season 1 and then get to 7. And how crisp it is, how fluid it is. It's incredible. It's night and day. And the stories that they're telling, like, speaking of like, oh, it's just a kid's thing. It's, yeah, you think it's a cartoon, you immediately think it's for kids.
Right.
But the stories they're telling, it's for everyone. Anyone can get into these, and the way that they're showing, like, you know, love, hate, betrayal, deception, like the whole thing in the background of Palpatine taking over the Senate and moving, seeing all the chess pieces.
All the chess moves he was doing.
Yeah, and just playing everyone. He's playing the Separatists. He's playing the Galactic Republic. Like, everything's moving to his design. Mm-hmm. And it's just incredible how they can flesh it out. Like, you just watch the prequels and you're just like, okay, yeah, he's a bad guy. We already knew he was a bad guy. Okay, this is what happened. Okay,
So
good.
how did it happen? Like,
Right.
You know, he just came in and
Sees
strong
the
armed
power
it,
and
or
everything. And like, I mean, you're talking about like the real world, like touchstones and stuff. Like, it's not just exclusive to like quote unquote nerdy things. Like, I mean, everybody's familiar with Disney. Mm-hmm. Lion King is just Hamlet.
Yep.
It's the Shakespearean play Hamlet told with lions and a baboon.
I literally said that. It's ironic. I went to see The Lion King. I was working with a company, and we had to. The managers in training had to go to different cities and work at different places. So I went to see The Lion King in Boston. Excited. I'm going with a whole bunch of folks. I'm like, okay, I have to find a kid. Why do you have to find a kid? Because I'm going to see a cartoon. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't want to walk in and be this guy by myself, you know, just sitting there. But it was great. And I sat there and I was like, as I watched it, I'm like, this is Hamlet.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, this is, again, if you can reel someone in with a premise like a Lion King and say, hey, look, this is really Hamlet, who knows if you don't spark that interest in them to go and read it.
Yeah, those are the really human stories of like you were talking about with Star Wars, of like betrayal, you know, revenge. Those are human emotions that
Getting
you can
past
put
the
into
four
anything.
arts and thous and,
Yeah.
you know, Shakespeare.
Makes it more palatable.
It makes it more
And is
palatable.
That's not a negative.
There's some banger songs in there, you know, Circle
Yeah.
of Life. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, man, I can't wait to be king. That was my song.
I mean, Lilo and Stitch remake is going to be like I think in a weird way, and maybe this is going to like dox ourselves of I think the reason that nerdy people are so, I'll use the word insufferable, is that
fits.
we
Yeah.
tend to be ADHD in a way, and people think that ADHD means that you can't pay attention to things, but it also means that you hyperfixate.
Yep.
And I was joking earlier of like, you want to know what I ate for breakfast yesterday? Got no idea. You want to know everything about Lord of the Rings? How long do you have?
Yeah.
Because I've gone down rabbit holes for no reason, just to waste time.
And it's so easy. It's so easy to do.
Because you become fascinated, and then you have to know every facet of it. Like, I'm sure Mike knows more about Star Wars than I could ever know. But
then you get excited when your literary works come to life. Like I saw to this day, Bram Stoker's Dracula is one of my favorite films.
have you seen Nosferatu?
I didn't see it because and this is I had to study it in film school. So the original.
Oh, I meant the new one.
No. The original got on my nerves so
yeah.
bad that I'm like,
So
I
you're
don't
just
wanna,
over it.
Yeah, I just don't want to watch it. And again, that was personal. So I hope I'm not diminishing someone from seeing it. But to go and, you know, I read Mary Shelley's, Shelley's Frankenstein.
For sci-fi.
You get what I'm saying? So I'm aging myself, but I was the kid who used to go to school and we had albums of books. And I could go into the library, it looked like a suitcase, open up the suitcase and it was a record player and put on my headphones and listen to a book. And it was Frankenstein or it was Dracula. And I was introduced to Count Dracula. And then to see Gary Oldman play Vlad, it was everything I thought. Like, wait a minute, they make this Dracula guy seem like he's just this, suave. I was a kid who saw George Harrison as Dracula and Love at First Bite and Frank Langella and Dracula. So I'm like, Dracula was kind of suave, but you see the monster that he really was or the things that he could do. And that whole speaking to the children of the night scene remember when the guy cut his hand and Gary Oldman got the blood and licked it, and I was like, oh my God, that was kind of gross. Like, this weird dude. But again, it's that level of escapism that I just got wrapped up in it.
The one that keeps popping up in my head about you talking about movies and books is Blade Runner. And
I love Blade
And then
Runner.
Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, no one knows. I'm going to say most people don't realize that was a book first
Yeah.
before they made the movie.
Philip K. Dick.
Yeah, Philip K. Dick. And then you read, it's like, oh,
Kelly, that's his name.
No, it really is his name, Kelly. Like,
come on.
the adults in the room.
He's bleeping a man's name.
Hey guys, just kidding.
I was waiting for you to do it too.
I know, right?
If you realize that it's a book, you read the book, then you get into his other novels, which are also great. And then it snowballs from there.
Yeah, I got a guy for you guys if you haven't read any of his stuff, or Ed Brubaker.
Oh yeah, I like Brubaker.
Not familiar with that one.
Man. Just the Lawless. He has this anthology out about Lawless. It's the name of a character. And gosh, man. Mike, Ed Brubaker, you just got to read that, man.
He tends to do like comics and stuff.
Okay.
Awesome. His stories were, man, that's the last thing that I've read that I'm like, wait a minute, I think I got to go back and read it again. And that's something my wife, again, we become hyper fixated on stuff. I have literally watched the animated 2 seasons of Black Dynamite on Adult Swim. I think it's like on continuous loop in my house because it's just a funny. I maybe it's a harkening back to being a kid and spending the weekends with my dad, and he would take me to the movies, and I'd go see all these blaxploitation films that were okay. They just pushed them out like in a weekend. Okay, it's a boom mic in the frame and stuff like that.
The Last Dragon.
Yeah. Come on. Slept on cult classic. The Last Dragon is like a great little.
Who's the master?
Come on, you know it. I got something for you in these hands.
So Kelly,
Show enough.
Kelly's being eerily quiet. Kelly, why don't you why don't you talk about your nerdy?
I know he's just
fixations?
running the board, man. Like
Now that
watching
you
us.
mention it, we're about an hour in, so it's time to wrap this guy
Oh,
up.
wow,
see,
that's-
we moved,
Hey.
man.
That's
I
a
did it.
master right
Mission
there.
accomplished.
Yeah.
You did your thing there,
master
man.
nerdery.
Yeah.
You know,
You did your thing there,
You didn't
buddy.
even talk
You-
about
Thank you.
Oblivion. You didn't talk about your movies.
you're right. Let's discuss my my dark elf battle mage build.
Okay.
Asshat.
His name is Asshat.
His name is Asshat.
Yeah, well,
Really?
now you gotta bleep yourself.
Yeah, bleep yourself.
All right, thanks everyone for stopping in today. It's been the Fire Away Nerdcast.
Yeah, man.
Talk to you next time.
Badass Inc.
There you go.